Welcome to Construction Revolution.
The revolution in the construction industry isn't just coming, it's already started.
This is Construction Revolution.
Construction Revolution.
This is the
This
revolution.
is the revolution.
Construction
Revolution.
So welcome everybody to Construction Revolution, another episode. I'm here with James Cook from Autodesk Construction Solutions. James, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
As everybody here knows, the Construction Revolution contemplates the fact that in the next 10 years, and even in the next 2 years, the construction industry will change more than it has in the last 100 years. And what we're looking to do is to give you the tools, the resources, the expertise, the technology, the latest thinking, so that you can thrive over the next 10 years and take advantage of these changes rather than resisting them and trying to figure out how to avoid the change that inevitably is coming to the industry. And so this is a very exciting time. And again, James is gonna share with us some of the things that Autodesk is doing that are going to revolutionize the industry. So, James, maybe a good place for us to start is, for those who don't know who Autodesk is, how big you are, where you're located, what types of solutions you provide. Can you give us sort of the big picture first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you specifically do with Autodesk. So let's start big picture.
Absolutely. So Autodesk is I think over 12,000 person company now, global in reach. We have offices and employees all over the world. And we make software for people who make things. And that covers a wide gamut of industries and activities. We got our start in design for architects and engineers, but that extends to manufacturing. It extends to all kinds of supply chain activities. It includes animation and special effects in movies. It's all kinds of software to help excite our world. And we're always super excited and proud of the things our customers do with the software. It's meta from the sense, not metaverse, but meta, that we take a step above and create tools that allow customers to just unlock amazing creativity and amazing value. And if you're ever in San Francisco, I think it's opening back up for the public soon. There's actually a gallery that we have down near the Ferry Building at One Market in San Francisco that's open to the public certain times of the week. And you can see all kinds of things our customers have made using our software, including some of the animation and special effects. There used to be a driving simulator. The thing that my kids always love is there's a giant dinosaur made out of Legos that someone designed using our tools. So I haven't seen the new one yet. It's been re-envisioned and reimagined. And I think when it opens to the public, there's gonna be a lot of exciting things that people can see there. In terms of, as you can see, I'm in Autodesk Construction Solutions. So we specifically sell to builders and frankly, everybody around the construction process. So that generally includes, obviously, general contractors, subcontractors, owners, design firms. And Autodesk for a long time has had a amazing reputation and a suite of amazing tools around design for all of these activities. But in the last, I'll say, 5 years, we've put a ton of research and development, as well as some acquisitions, including I was acquired from a company called PlanGrid, putting all that together to really attack the builders, the construction aspect of AEC, of architecture, engineering, and construction. And so that's the group I sit in, is the software for those builders. And that is primarily a suite that we call Autodesk Construction Cloud. That includes everything, taking the design that people use in some of those other Autodesk tools through the planning and pre-construction into the actual building, and then keeping that data flowing all the way into operation of the project. Because you build it for a few years, but you, in theory, operate it for many, many, many years.
Right. Yeah. It's the building has a life of its own at some point. And so, first of all, you said some really cool things. I want to make sure our audience gets this. I'm wondering if some of our audience is going to be thinking, is there a website for that cool museum of all the different things that, and if there is, we need to get that and we'll drop it in
Yeah, I'll find the link. I'm sure there is, and I suspect there's some really interesting new imagery that I haven't even seen yet. I've seen some of the sneak previews of what it looks like now, but we actually took some time during the pandemic to reimagine and renovate that space. So it's really exciting in there.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that either in person or even virtually. I come from a family of artists. Where and I love what Autodesk is about. Autodesk is about taking your imagination and making it reality.
Yeah.
And in construction, that couldn't be a place where that needs to be more applied. So many people, if you look at some of the amazing architecture, some of the neighborhoods, even around Baltimore or in other parts of the world or the country, reimagining buildings and the use of space is a very exciting thing. And I think you certainly must have had a vision for the future of construction when you started your company that was acquired by Autodesk. Maybe tell us a little bit about your vision of the construction future. And then we can get into maybe a little bit about what Autodesk does and the ecosystem and the,
Sure.
and everything that brings to the table for the construction industry. What's your vision of the future?
Just to be totally fair to the founders of PlanGrid, I did not found it. I was an employee of PlanGrid, but Tracy Young was our founding CEO, and you can find a lot of amazing content that she's created over the years. So when I joined PlanGrid almost 6 years ago, what excited me about joining was frankly the founder's vision, which I share, is that at the time, and I think a lot still today, paper was pervasive on job sites, right? That it was, we all have the picture of the roll of blueprints on the arm. Yeah, but I came in with no knowledge about construction, so that was the picture I had in my head. Only discovered that was just the tip of the iceberg. That it was that one of the first meetings I had in like orientation at PlanGrid, they dropped this giant half set down on the desk, and it was this binder that you could barely lift. And as you start to think about what goes on a large commercial job site, and how many different constituents and companies, let alone individuals, are out there, and paper is the ultimate data silo, right? It is really hard to collaborate, particularly over distances or even across the job site in paper.
Right.
And then you think about the complexity of these projects and how the design firms, in collaboration with the builders, are constantly updating, enhancing, iterating on all of that. And so it is easy to immediately be out of sync because there's a new drawing that comes out. And if you imagine trying to get a single drawing out to maybe 100 different drawing sets, paper drawing sets out on the job site, that was a key problem that PlanGrid was solving. And so that was exciting me, as we were literally ripping paper off the job site. Just prior to PlanGrid, I had worked in doing software partnerships at Box, the cloud content provider.
Yeah.
That is still a shareholder. Hopefully, many of your viewers are using it in their jobs.
Use Box, everybody.
Sorry, say it again.
I said use Box, everybody.
Exactly.
It is a great cloud content
That's
tool.
Right. And one we integrate with, which we'll talk about maybe a little later. But what was interesting back at Box is that our customer engagements, we were ripping old technology out, old document servers and on-premise storage, and that's fine. But this notion of ripping paper off job sites really, really excited me. That was like, to your point, Matt, you said, that we're changing in the next 2 to 10 years, we're changing more than the prior 100 years. Well, that's a huge change right there that I see happening real time with our customers and all of their business partners. And so that to me is hugely exciting. But I'd also say, in that kind of going out that 10-year vision, it's that digitizing is just the start, right? If you're getting stuff off of paper and into a digital format, lots of people have been doing that, but it's then taking that and figuring out ways to streamline and automate workflows and this is where my job comes in, to actually integrate the various technology tools that people are using and put that all together in a way that can drive even greater efficiency. So
I want to time you out for a second.
Yeah.
Because you brought up a big problem that I think it'd be very easy to gloss over. Most folks in construction are using some multiple of a number of different technologies every day. Fair?
Yes. Absolutely.
You're recognizing that problem. So part of the vision is, how do we make all of that work together? Not just how do we put something on top of that that's the next great thing that's in your tech stack or your software or your cloud stack. Or, and for those of you who, just all the different software you use. So everyone who's listening should be thinking, what are all the different software programs you use? And you're jumping between these all the time, and a lot of problems and miscommunication can happen as a result. So it's a big thing. Your vision of the future is uniting all of these different applications.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I think really differentiates what we're doing at Autodesk is that we lean into that. I mean, so that is my role, right? I'm the head of integration partnerships for Autodesk Construction Solutions.
Okay.
And so we have, I have a team that goes out and recruits other software and construction technology vendors to integrate their tools to be able to share data, both send it into our applications and pull it from it to use it in various ways, and then help those folks go to market in the sense of introduce them to our customers, because our vision is that ends up driving a lot of value. Having those connection points, having those workflows between applications is hugely important. And
what happens when they don't, James? Just what's the problem? Give me like an average profile of the type of construction company, general contractor, subs, suppliers. What does it look like for most of them now?
So there are, a lot of them again are still using paper and pencil in a lot of ways that we're helping modernize and get them moving off that. But even some of them who maybe started their technology journey a while back are using, or even stuck on some older, maybe on-premises solutions, that are installed on a server in a closet somewhere, that are walled gardens. They're walled off and don't share that information. And a few things I think happen. One, they may not be as modern. They may not be as easy to use. A lot of the things that we saw at Box and that we see now, where consumer technology has influenced B2B technology, has influenced enterprise technology, where we expect that ease of use and those interfaces that have been, proliferated throughout construction technology.
Right.
Some of those older walled off solutions just don't have that. And so they're harder to use and they're stuck, but it's all walled in. And so it's hard to move and adapt and iterate. The other problem is that, and by the way, you end up with frustrated employees. And one of the things we talk about a lot in this industry is trying to recruit and bring in fresh young blood to solve some of the labor shortages. Well, using old walled off technology that doesn't adapt and iterate, that doesn't work, right? The young people just won't do it.
They won't tolerate it.
They won't tolerate it. They'll be frustrated, and they'll either walk to a different company or just find a different career path. And
this is an important point. If you want to attract from a shrinking labor pool, you better provide cutting edge technology that the next generation is accustomed to. It's not a nice to have in their world. It's a have to have.
And the analogy I'll use on this is, I'm old enough to have had a Blackberry professionally, and a lot of those older walled off solutions that don't collaborate, that don't integrate, that don't have that data flow, that's the Blackberry, right? And why did the iPhone take over? It wasn't just because it was a slicker piece of equipment. It was because it had an ecosystem. It had all of those apps that could add on to what the core capabilities of the device were. And that's the same attitude we have, and some of the other solutions out there are kind of sticking in the Blackberry model. And so our view is, it's not just in theory good for us, it's good for the customer, right? Like it's the idea that the data that they trust into our solutions, into Autodesk Construction Cloud, can become useful in other ways, that there's a whole range of other tools out there that just yields dividends in terms of collaboration, efficiency, productivity. And that's exactly what we're trying to drive at.
So maybe let's use an example here, and not too complex, but let's imagine a general contractor as an example. They want to do a good job by avoiding problems on the construction project, right? Mm-hmm. If you win the contract, that's the beginning. Not for many, it's like, wow, we won. You know,
Yep.
We were the best bid. But really, the problem I see in the construction industry is there's this never-ending. A couple of things begin to happen. The owner of the project becomes disillusioned because communication is poor, and there is a lot of extra work that gets done unnecessarily. We talked about this offline a little bit. Rework as an example of one. Doing something, having to undo it and do it again. Because people have different sets of information. But let's use this general contractor who wants to grow. I'm going to arbitrarily pick their $100 million. Their average project is $5 million. They're doing small ground up work. And what are the 2 or 3 top technologies they're probably using that are walled off? And then take us through those technologies and what Autodesk does to create a better experience for the general contractor, its employees, and its client.
So I'd say a few things. So there's a decent chance the company that size, they're probably managing their finances on spreadsheets still, right? Excel. And Excel is amazing. I started my career in finance and banking. I love Excel. But there comes a time in any company's evolution and growth where you kind of need to step above that and use some other tools. So it could be, we see a lot of our customers starting to use QuickBooks Online or Acumatica, and having that, even adopting one of those accounting solutions or ERPs is great and can help you track your business and understand, was this project profitable? Should I bid on projects like that again? That kind of thing is great. But that's where, again, one of our great connection points is you start to see is there are cost management solutions within Autodesk Build, which is part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And being able to integrate that with the accounting helps that data flow back and forth. So as you're tracking PCOs and change orders and how those affect budgets and estimates, and having that information flow over and having expenses flow between the two helps you actually manage your project in our solution in a way that informs and educates the financials and vice versa. And so that's a key piece is you start to, if you're thinking about trying to grow your business, that's a piece. And our team has tools to help those integrations happen with tools, again, like QuickBooks Online, Acumatica, and others. Sage 300 is a huge one in construction. And we have a third-party integration that partner HH2 has built between our cost management tools and Sage 300 so that customers can manage their business alongside their project.
So, it's interesting. You're really talking about cost management here and some tools they might or might not be using. It's making me think of, this general contractor, and you're right. Some are getting more sophisticated. A lot of them are in either some cloud-based like QuickBooks or they're in a spreadsheet. Then I have, we have clients that are subcontractors. And there's a genius inside that subcontractor that knows how to bid projects.
Right.
But it's all in their head. It's not even on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And we have to convince them, you have to learn to share that knowledge with others. But one of the things that I often hear from these subcontractors is, if we could just get the profit margin that we bid on to be realized, everything would be great. So that, one, they have it, how they're bidding stuck in their head, but then how they manage the project is a mystery until completion. And they're usually missing margins, and it's a big frustration for them. So based on what you're talking about in real-time cost management, would Autodesk and some of these tools help in their ecosystem?
100%. So both in terms of getting that real-time visibility and transparency into what they're doing, but also, as you mentioned, we were talking about a little bit offline, even actually just building better. So for instance, You mentioned the subcontractor and the general contractor. Well, construction, one of my favorite phrases I hear from customers is that construction is a team sport. It has to be by its nature.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of that, what I call cross-border collaboration, where the sub and the GC, or the GC and the design firm, or the owner, all that in the mix. And they're all using different technology tools. So SharePoint, for instance, is one that we see a ton, right? Everybody uses Microsoft in some form or another, and a lot of SharePoint Online comes with Office 365, so lots of folks use it. And one of the things we'll see, for instance, is they'll have a collaboration folder in SharePoint Online with a design firm, upload the drawings here. Well, that's great, but SharePoint is not really the tool that you're going to actually use on the job site. You're not going to take it out in the field. You're not going to have it on an iPad. It's going to be hard to use. That's exactly where our tools can come in. And so we have integrations, for instance, that automatically will watch a particular SharePoint folder or site and pull over the documents into the proper Autodesk Docs folder or into the Autodesk Build project, and have them there available, either just to mark up, to use on your iPad in the field. And that's where you start to unlock, again, some productivity in terms of, if you're operating off of the most recent information, and that because it automatically ported over, and you've got, now I think even more than 6 years ago when I started, you've got pretty persistent and pervasive internet connectivity on the job site. So that you've got the most recent information in our digital tools.
Right. You've got the most recent architect's drawing where they re-added the wall that was missing in the initial drawing.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so you run the wires in the right place instead of, if that wall wasn't there, how do you run the wires through it? Or the plumbing is, properly done, or, you weren't supposed to put the floor down yet because the wall had to go in.
Right.
All of those are mistakes that could, if you don't have that drawing with the wall put back in, like you mentioned, all of those can happen. All of those require rework. They require, pulling out the floor or whatever that has a cascade effect of cost. And depending on how that transpires, that could be on the subcontractor, the GC. Anyway, it's not likely that the owner is going to take it on the chin on that, I don't think. But, right? But
as they say, it rolls downhill.
It rolls downhill, right? So, the GC is going to say, well, I uploaded the files, or I sent them to you. Didn't you get them? And so, because it doesn't happen in real time, somebody, it's easy to shift the blame or shift the liability downstream, like you said. And so
what we're solving is real-time changes across the project. Everybody gets that information right away, no matter what unique technology you're using.
We also have situations where people are gathering information from the field to send back, either in our tool on its own, right, where I can, again, use a mobile device, and I can, fill out a form, some kind of inspection report, or any custom form, any of the paper forms that people used to have on clipboards and in, the white, pink, and yellow carbon copies and all that now can be digitized and filled out from the field, and can be analyzed and viewed in our tool, or even, depending on what it is, can be answered by another constituent back in the office. Sometimes we see folks want those, again, integrated with other applications. So a tool like Smartsheet. We've got customers who are filling out RFIs in our tool, and then they've got project engineers who are reviewing those RFIs in Smartsheet, and they work down a queue of it in a spreadsheet format sitting at a desk in the trailer. And as they answer things, it can synchronize back and can inform the field as well. So you keep everybody in sync and up to date. And where this becomes, again, in my job of having these integration partners and having the tools tied into other construction applications or horizontal SaaS applications, because it's a team sport, because everybody gets to select their own software to a large extent, even when somebody mandates it, you still have the tools that your company has already invested in. Having those work in concert opens up a lot of collaboration and productivity.
So
it helps people work better together.
You're solving the problem of, once people are trained on a software, they really don't want to use another software. And you're saying, fine, whatever you use. We're just interested in getting the data unified. So, it's interesting. I'll come across a general contractor, subcontractor, sometimes massive, and they've got the right attitude, the right philosophies about the goal is get the owner what they want, communicate effectively, take great care of your subs and suppliers, pay them quickly, all of those, communicate effectively, avoid the rework. They have all those philosophies. When I run into a general contractor that we consider working with, we actually have a list of criteria. You have to kind of believe these things. And those are the things they have to believe. Sometimes we run into general contractors or subs or suppliers or manufacturers, and their philosophy isn't that. Their philosophy is we pass the cost along. We go to great effort to force our partners or subcontractors to perform. And if they make a mistake, that's on them, but we're going to force them to perform. And we find that damaging. So I'm wondering, I'm sure as you roll this out, you're seeing early adopters that say, James, thank goodness you guys are here and this is what you're doing. What's the philosophy of the people that right now are resisting? What are the things that maybe they need to hear from you that will hurt them in the future?
So what I would say is that what you just described, to me, sounds like somebody who is penny wise and pound foolish, right?
Yeah.
If I think about like working with my own team, both the team that reports to me and other people I collaborate with within our business, if I treat people properly, right, then it's going to pay me dividends in the long run. And I think that, and by the way, as a guy who runs an ecosystem of over 210 partners, right, that's the way we try and behave with our partners as well. We've seen competitors who don't do that, right, who either, to put it bluntly, rip off technology from other people or,
right.
Are looking to like, how do I extract value from the partners instead of how do I create value with them?
How do I provide? Right.
Yeah, that's exactly, because if you provide it, it comes back to you, right? It's a return on that investment.
Yeah.
So that's true, I'm sure, in every industry. It's true in construction, but I see that as a kind of penny wise, pound foolish mentality. And I suspect if the contractor behaves that way in all of those avenues that you just described, they're probably behaving that way in their technology assessments as well. And they're going for the low cost solution and instead of investing for productivity. This even goes back to when I was at Box. One of the things we talked about was a shifting mindset amongst CIOs, where the old mindset of the CIO was like, okay, I have to control the technology, I have to lock it down, and of course that's always true. You have to be secure, particularly in a modern cloud environment that takes on increasing importance, and with whether they're governmental bad actors or independent hackers, whatever, you have to be cautious, obviously. That's right. But it's not about locking it down and preventing people from using, and it's about the shift in mindset was, how does that CIO become someone who is enabling and providing tools and services and doing that? I think that's the same thing here is the customers who are making the best productivity gains, the best efficiency, the best collaboration are the ones who think about that. How can I get the right tools, the right software applications, or other types of technology in the hands of the right people? Because not every tool fits every person, and not every, we all have either personal preferences or our job requires different things. And again, that's where this notion of having an open ecosystem is really critical and really important, is it allows people to use the most effective tool with, usually some kind of central hub. And that's where, humbly speaking, we come in is Autodesk Construction Cloud has, a central trusted repository for data, documents, and the record set of your job site. But being able to use that information in other places or gather it from other tools is critically important and helps those customers do better and get the most out of their IT investment instead of kind of locking it down and protecting it.
That makes sense. And it's one of these ideas that if your mentality, I'm going to summarize this, is if your mentality is, how do I help more people rather than how do I get more for myself, or, how do I extract more, as you put it, I think you're going to find that the actions you're going to take as the CFO, the CIO, the CTO, or even the CEO as a mandate is go talk to our people and our customers and find out what information they need. Do a project reviews. Where did the wrong information cost us time, money, energy, or job satisfaction among our employees?
And, selfishly, Matt, I would say that as contractors, or anybody in the construction industry is thinking about technology vendors, I'd hope they're looking for software companies who have that same mindset, that idea of openness and trying to help other people. I've seen with a lot of our competitors, for instance, or even just other types of applications out there. I mentioned those, kind of walled garden, whether it's because that's just historically the way the technology was and it hasn't evolved, or because they even maybe have that as a mindset that they view it as locked down, and anything that comes in and maybe touches that data or touches that information is competitive and we need to keep it away.
Right.
And the counter analogy I use is my laptop computer, right? As I'm talking to you and recording this today, I'm doing it on my laptop, and I could do the whole thing on my laptop, right? I can do most of my job on my laptop. It's obviously got the processor, it's got a keyboard, a monitor, touchpad, speakers, microphone, and webcam, all in that one device.
Right.
But that's not how I work. It's probably not how you work,
Nope.
right? I have a second monitor. I have a mouse and a ergonomic keyboard, right? And a webcam and all of that stuff, earbuds, all of it are all things that are competitive with my laptop. But when I actually open up and think about it, it's an ecosystem around it that enhances my productivity, enhances the way I work. And that's exactly what we're talking about with construction software, where sure, documents exist, and we've got Autodesk Docs and the project files within Autodesk Build, but we also integrate with cloud storage solutions. We've got partners who do safety inspection reports. We can do some of that in our application as well, of course. But giving that customer the ability to select which tools, software or otherwise, that they use on their job sites, and having them speak to each other, having them come back and be useful in the context of their insights dashboard in Autodesk Build, where it's a command center for their project, and having all that information in one place can be incredibly powerful. It can still center on the laptop, but having all of those other pieces of technology surrounding it just unlocks more power, more value for the customer.
So it really is, to the initial question, it's a change in mentality to how do I invite everybody to my party?
That's right.
Rather than who's stealing from me.
That's exactly right. And it's funny because we do, when you think about it, would you ever buy a laptop at this point without Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or a USB port? You just wouldn't do it, right? You need that. It's the same thing. You should be looking for software tools that connect and are open and invite people to the party, like you said. And that's why my job exists and my team exists.
And ultimately, again, you said it, building is an ecosystem. You have owners, you have general contractors, you have construction managers, you've got subcontractors, you've got suppliers, you've got consultants, you've got, a lot of folks that all have a say in timing in a project. And the more you can create a very easy system, no matter what technology people are using, to understand what's happening and to be at the right place at the right time, the more you're going to thrive in the new economy. So I'm kind of interested, where do you think we are in that in that bell curve, if you will, of adoption of that idea, that concept of open systems? Where are we? What's the timing? Are we in, if it's a baseball game, are we in inning 1, 2, or 9?
We haven't hit the halfway point. We're, I don't know, inning 3 or 4 maybe. I think, particularly in construction, right? I think that construction, particularly the kinds of large projects that our software caters to, they last for years, and it's hard to change lanes in technology sometimes in the middle of a project. Although, obviously we strive to make that easier when and where we can. And so I think it's only natural for our customers to I'll say, exert a little more diligence and discipline about what they adopt and when. And so that maybe, as a result, I think we're not as far along as I'd like us to be. I think as most of our customers would like us to be. I think they all, lots of them want to move faster and are trying to. And not to be trite about it, but obviously the pandemic has accelerated a lot of that, either because the projects were shut down and so it was a good point to try something new, or because the nature of remote work and project management necessitated it. We've seen obviously a ton of that. And so I think we went almost, maybe from inning 2 to inning 4 or 5 because of the pandemic, if you use the baseball.
So where were we, say, 10 years ago? Was this even a thing 10 years ago?
I think it was.
The thing is the ecosystem, open system.
It was batting practice, right? It was like there were some people who were maybe thinking about it, but no, it really, it wasn't a thing 10 years ago. Certainly not in construction management software. I think there were some other places. Folks like Salesforce.com pioneered this 10 to 15 years ago. And then, but if you think, even 10 years ago, SaaS and cloud was just becoming a buzzword technology industry wide. And it's a lot of the technology that's come about through that has allowed it. Modern APIs, which it depending on the technical savvy of your viewers is a little bit esoteric, but it's the wiring underneath the hood of a lot of these tools that allow them to talk to each other, that allow them to pass information effectively across the internet to the different applications, no matter where they're hosted or how they hook together. Those really only came about in the last, I'll say, 15 years, at least the way that we use them today, the types of technology we use today. And so it goes back to what you said at the very outset, that the change of the next 2 to 10 years is going to be more than the last 100 because of it was certainly in this arena of ecosystems and openness of data and documentation it's accelerating because the way that these tools are out. And mobile, by the way, is a huge driver of that as well, because mobile devices by their nature beam technology up to some kind of cloud somewhere, right? It's pretty rare that you have a mobile application that works well on top of an on-premise solution, right? By their nature. And so all of that coming together has, I think, accelerated this a lot.
Yeah, and essentially the IoT or Internet of Things, everything is connected now, so it's easier to feed up to some central database referred to as the cloud. So there are people that are sitting here thinking as they're listening to this, okay, so 10 years ago, this probably was batting practice. Now we're in the 3rd or 4th inning due to COVID. And I would suggest that there are probably examples you could provide of companies that were early adopters prior to COVID who benefited from having this technology in place when COVID hit. So it's not like you wait for a pandemic to start investing in technology. All companies should be asking themselves, how do I serve my client better? My client or my customers and my employees and my partners. How do I serve them better? And those who did that, not waiting for a pandemic, probably benefited. I think we universally agree with that, although that's oversimplification. What do you think is going to happen from here? When is it? There are owners of businesses out there in the construction industry that are trying to decide, do they want to sell their business now? Mm-hmm. Or do they want to re-up in technology so they can be competitive for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? Who knows? So when is this game going to be played out? Like, at what point do we say, it's if you're not in this game of open architecture, open information to everybody, you're going to be too late. And it's no longer going to be a competitive factor. It's a requirement, but it's no longer a something that gives you a decided advantage.
So I think a lot of this will become table stakes over the next 5-10 years. A lot of what we're talking about. But there's always going to be that frontier of what's the next thing. We have partners, for instance, who take the BIM models that are in our solution that are created in Autodesk design tools, collaborated around in some of our cloud solutions, and then put into the construction management workflows. And they can actually pull those and put them into a virtual reality environment where you and I could put headsets on and could be walking around the BIM model together from, I think you said you're in Maryland, I'm on the West Coast. We could be collaborating that way just as easily as we're talking today over video chat. We could be doing it in a virtual reality world.
Jim, I'm wondering, because you have so many partners,
yeah.
You conduct any symposiums to show the construction industry what is the cutting edge with all the tools?
So
and this is not, by the way, it's not a plug. This is just, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, there's cutting edge every week. There's something new.
That's absolutely right. So there's a few different ways. So we have, if you go to construction.autodesk.com, you can see and in fact, construction.autodesk.com/integrations. You can see the portfolio, the gallery of those partners and applications. We run events. Obviously, that's been a little bit weird the last couple of years, but we're opening back up. And so, for instance, we hold an annual conference called Autodesk University. And we often have, and historically have had, partners come to that to showcase their applications. And even as we've done it the last few years virtually, we've had ways that partners come and showcase what they can do, whether that's holding a class as part of Autodesk University or sponsoring an in-person booth or a virtual booth the last few times. And that's all available online as well. You can see the virtual ones from the last few years and a lot of those technologies out there. And I think, again, as knock on wood, the pandemic has crested and hopefully will stay down, and then we don't have a new variant that's going to jump up and bite us.
Right.
We're going to have more and more opportunities around the country and around the world to have partners with these amazing integrations show off what they do and how they do it. And so I think, and going back to your question, like that's the cool thing about my job as well, is I get to see lots of cutting edge stuff. And so there's always this kind of next frontier. I think 10 years ago, you never saw a drone. Right now we have several partners that have software to manage their drone flights and the imagery and video that's captured from them. And then again, feed those back into what they do to align that with their design drawings or the RFIs and submittals and issues that they're capturing in our application, to say, hey, how do these things match up? What am I seeing from the reality capture of my drone flight, or from the 360-degree camera that I can actually mount on my hard hat and walk around the job site? How does that line up with what was designed? How does that influence the kinds of problems that I have to track to solve before they escalate?
It'd be exciting. I'll bet you also have owners there that talk about what they want in a project. And first of all, I've got to get an invitation. So deal on the side. You got to get me an invitation to one of these events. I would love to be there. So maybe in wrapping up today, we talk a little bit about, sort of what do you want to accomplish with Autodesk in the next couple of years? What is it you want to do for the construction industry? Beyond just creating this open architecture and ecosystem, what is the result that you want the industry to experience? Not the technology, but the result you want. So
we spent the last several years building out this big ecosystem. And my focus and my team's focus really is on helping those partners get in front of customers in ways that the usage grows. Because a lot of these partners are admittedly they're startups, right? They're trying to build their own businesses. They're trying to get in front of customers. And every time we see one of these where a customer adopts it and gets that workflow going, whatever it is, whatever tool it is that they're hooking into what we do, they see gains, they see value, they see ROI. Frankly, they wouldn't have adopted the tool if they didn't, but there's so many more examples of where customers can unlock that value. And so we are aimed squarely at helping customers see those opportunities, understand what they can achieve, and do that within my team. I think Autodesk Construction Solutions as a whole, and the Autodesk Construction Cloud is also very focused on how do we make the data that customers already have or are capturing just so much more useful. But there are amazing amounts of data that are lost in the process of construction, and our tools help mitigate and prevent that entirely. And so that's this notion of going from the design, which Autodesk has always excelled at, all the way through, pre-construction, site construction, building, on the job site, and into operations, and keeping that data whole all the way throughout, and then supplementing and augmenting that with all of this information that is either captured or used or iterated on in all of these partner applications, having that all come together in a way that data is then useful. I think about a lot of the daily reports that customers fill out, right? That in the old world, the paper world, they fill it out again on a clipboard in triplicate, and they shove it in a drawer. And it only ever comes out maybe in litigation.
Right.
Right.
What did I write on this form? I didn't press hard enough.
Exactly. And that's terrible, right? Because whatever was happening there, whatever information was captured that day by that person writing it down, if that had been digitized, that could have been used not just in that downside scenario, but it could have been used to help them
Prevent
what they were going to do the next day and the next week. And that's again where, through our tools and through the partner applications that we work with, capturing that data and making that data more useful, that's what we're driving toward.
And I think for a construction company to think, I'm gonna extend that into imagining some things. Mm-hmm. Imagine it's 3 years from now and you still have paper forms. And I've read, and I'm sure I can cite the source if anyone wants to challenge me, that 92% of the information at the architect standpoint, 92% of that information at initial drawing is changed by the end of the project, the construction project. Think about all the people and all the paper and all the wasted time. We're a sales training organization for the construction industry. We help sell and win bids and contracts. Mm-hmm. And I often say to the contractor, "What's your hit rate?" And I don't know, 28%. And I said, "What's it cost you to put a bid on this street?" I don't know, $500, $1,500, $5,000, $100,000. And I say, okay, so let's just do a quick calculation on 22% of your wasted bids that you should be winning. All that paper, all that bad communication, all that misinformation, all of that is millions of dollars in your business. And so what James is talking to you about is, by you understanding how to become more efficient at every step, you don't need as many employees, and there aren't that as many employees today than there were 10 years ago that want to come into the construction industry. It cuts down on your costs. It cuts down on the frustration. So it's really interesting what you're talking about. I don't want it to get lost on the audience that whatever you do, you have to be thinking, how do I become more efficient? How do I share more information? Because the multi-billion-dollar organizations of the world, those companies in California that are creating all the new technology, or wherever they are, Northern Virginia, they're solving that problem, and that is coming. And if you don't adjust, if you don't make adjustments right now, it's going to be too late. You're better off if you're thinking you don't want to invest in an open ecosystem for everybody that you work with. You might want to consider selling your business now. Because you're going to get outclassed very quickly. And I think, James, to your point, if we're in the third, fourth, or fifth inning, the world's going to know it in 3 years.
Yeah, there's a lot to come. There's a lot to come. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm excited about what you're doing. I'm excited for you to share with our audience some of the events they can go to learn how quickly technology is changing and how to make decisions about what technology their clients need and their employees need and their business partners need. At the end of the day, those who aren't efficient aren't going to compete. So it just, you end up working with the worst people in the industry that have the worst technology. You're not going to make any money. You'll be sort of that busy and broke concept. So James, this has been fantastic. Where can people find you if they just want to know more about the technology? They want case studies. They want you to walk through an example of how it might help them, just so they can get an idea. Not that they have to do business with you, but just to understand what where the world is headed in terms of sharing information.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to construction.autodesk.com, there's an amazing amount of information there about how our software works in general. If you go specifically to construction.autodesk.com/integrations, you can see this portfolio and ecosystem of partners that I've been talking about. And there's demo videos and screenshots and explanations and descriptions of how all of those things work. If you're one of those vendors out there watching this, one of those construction technology vendors, and you want to talk about joining our ecosystem, go to construction.autodesk.com/partners. There's a form you can go out there, and there's some folks from my team who will get back to you very quickly, I promise. And we can talk about what kinds of value you're unlocking and how that might work in conjunction or in concert with our applications, and deliver that value to customers. Because again, that's where we're going, is we need to help more customers make these transitions, understand how to take that attitude that Matt described of openness and helping other people. And just as we hope the customers do that, that's exactly how we're trying to behave as well. And so those are the great places to reach out to us. And then of course I'm on LinkedIn like everybody else is. So you can, if you search LinkedIn for James Cook and Autodesk, I'm pretty sure I'm the only James Cook at Autodesk these days, but you can find me there as well.
I don't know, 12,000 employees, there could be.
There could be. I started my career at General Electric. At the time, it's shrunk and changed, but at the time it was 350,000 employees, and there were 6 James Cooks. And so I would get emails for entirely the wrong people.
So if you're looking to get in touch with somebody at GE, at least you got 5 more shots at James Cook. But hopefully you're a one of a kind. You certainly were today on this call. And you helped with both philosophies and actual information about, that I thought was reassuring. No matter what technology you're using now, you probably can integrate rather than having to wholesale start over. And I also like the fact that you're inviting other technology companies to the party. And I would encourage them to talk to you, because again, I think this is a wave that if you miss, you're going to be sorry you did. So James, we got to talk more about some of who your partners are and the folks that we work with offline, because I'm sure there are folks that we can help get into your ecosystem, both in the construction industry and in the software industry that helps the construction industry. So I'd be excited to do that with you. But for now, hopefully you took some good notes. You enjoyed meeting James, and I look forward to hearing of everybody's success. Remember, change is happening faster now. You really don't have the time to sit and contemplate this for a couple of years. Get with your team, talk about what your clients and your partners and your employees need that they're not getting, and maybe reach out to James and his team on ways that they can give you better ideas and maybe even assist you in your growth. So that's it for this construction episode. Again, for all of you out there, join the revolution. If you don't, you may not like the result as much as if you do, and you embrace some of this changes coming that will help you, your employees, and your clients. Again, James, thank you for joining us for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you again in the near future.
Thanks, Matt. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yep, likewise. Thanks, everybody.